In the marketplace, for example, we now have more competitors than ever before. They're global. They're everywhere. And that makes us more substitutable. The customer has more information and can, therefore, know about all the things that are available. So all those things make us more substitutable all the time. And of course, we introduce new products, we try to put value add to our products, we do all the things to make us more unique, but the market forces are stronger. Now, here is why this is so important. If you are unique, the way you sell is 100% different from if you're substitutable. If you're unique, life is very simple. You're selling because your product has so much value in it that no one else has this value. So the job of the salesperson is to communicate to customers what a great product you've got. And because the product has so much value, once the customer hears about the product, they buy. Now, that's fine. That's what we could call the better mousetrap theory. We make a better mousetrap and the world comes. But what do you do if your mousetrap is just one of 1,000 ways to kill mice? You go to the customer and we say, we have this mousetrap, and the customer says, everybody has a mousetrap. All I want is dead mice, cheap. That's a different sale. And what we have to do there is we have to add value when we sell. We have to create value, not communicate value. Because the business model has changed. So, for example, in the old model, we're just creating the product. It has a lot of value. Sales communicates the value, and we make sales. So the job of sales in the past was value communication, showing to customers that we were better than competitors. Today, there are so many mousetraps that the job has changed. We just have one way to kill mice. And so there's not enough value in our mousetrap, and the job of selling has got to add more value. So selling is value creation, not value communication. Now, those are simple words, but they're talking about a very big shift. Here's the problem. In most sales forces around the world, most salespeople are still value communicators. They believe their job is showing the customer what a good mousetrap we have. And they're failing. In every marketplace, they're failing. There are two important things to say about value. The first thing is, it is the customer who decides the value, not the product. So this bottle of water has a lot of value if I'm thirsty and I want to drink. But if I don't want to drink, it has no value. It's the same bottle, but the value is how useful it is to the person who buys it. The second thing is value has two components. The first component are the benefits you get, and the second component is the cost you pay. So, for example, this bottle of water, if I'm thirsty and it costs me $2, that's good, because the benefit of taking away my thirst is worth $2. So I got more than I paid. If it was $2,000, I would have to be very thirsty before I bought it. So we're always looking for value when the benefits exceed the cost. And what that means is that there are two ways in which we can create customer value when we sell. We can increase the benefits or we can decrease the cost. They're both ways of creating customer value. Perhaps the most useful thing that you can take away from this session is a very simple question that you should ask your salespeople all the time. If one of your salespeople is going to make an important call to a major customer, talk to them before the call and say, why would the customer write you a check for the call that you are going to make? And if they don't have a good answer, they don't create value, they're a talking brochure. You need to have your people making the kind of sales calls where the customer would be so pleased that they would write a check. So what do customers want? Well, customers are interested in information, but not information about products. They like information about the industry and about trends. When we did this survey, many customers said to us, the reason why I would write a check for this salesperson is this salesperson knows what my competitors are doing. They tell me news about what's happening. I hear new things from them. So customers still want information, they just don't want information about your products. Up above that, customers valued salespeople who they thought were their advocate. They'd say, I write a check for this salesperson because if they say that they will get a delivery next Tuesday, they will make it happen. They're looking after my interests. This is perhaps one reason why research shows that the best salespeople are usually fighting their own company, because they're representing customers all the time. And customers see value in that. It's a way to create value. But the number one way to create value, the most important thing, is this. We can create value by problem solving and customizing solutions. This has become the new selling. The job of the salesperson is to solve a customer problem. That's the most common way of creating value. What does selling effectively really mean? Well, it means things like this. For example, if you select only the best opportunities, you can double your sales, literally. And this is becoming a major issue worldwide. The most successful companies in hard times go after fewer pieces of business in more depth. The unsuccessful companies do it the other way. So over-resourcing best opportunities is the mantra. And understanding customers in more depth is part of selling effectively. Selling is no longer about persuasion. It's about understanding. You can't solve a customer's problems and create value if you don't understand the customer in depth, which involves listening and creativity. Those are the skills of selling today. If I were to give you one piece of good advice, my piece of good advice would be this. If you wouldn't try to make this sale in good times, never try to make it when times are bad. I think this should be written on the wall of every sales manager's office.
Most companies are rather market share or profit oriented or volume oriented rather than profit oriented. And this is one of the big problems, because Most companies have relatively low margins, relatively low profits. If you look at the Fortune 500, in the still good year 2008, their average profit margin was about 3%. So they earned only $3 on each $100 of revenue. Why does this market share orientation dominate? What do we have to change to become truly profit-oriented? And let me illustrate that through a couple of concrete cases. Here's a quote from a top manager. Let's be honest, we all claim to be going for profit, but heads start rolling as soon as the market share drops by 0.1%. When profit goes down by 20%, nothing happens. This was the executive vice president of sales and marketing at BMW, the German automotive company. This is a very good company, and I met him some time ago, and he said, when we have a board meeting and a board member has threats that our market share goes down, that we are losing some customers, I am always in deep trouble. If profit goes down by 10 or 20%, that is usually force majeure, nobody can do anything about it, but market share, volume, number of customers is always on the head of the board members. The second experience in Tokyo. Why doesn't it move? Sony. Sony is a good company with regard to brand products, but Sony has had profit and margin problems for many years. Usually their margin is only 1, 2, 3%. Whereas, for instance, Samsung Electronics, now the largest IT company in the world from Korea, has a margin of 10 or 12%. The profit of Samsung Electronics alone is bigger than the combined profits of all Japanese electronics manufacturers. So we had a discussion at Sony headquarters in Tokyo, and there was an agreement that Sony has to charge for its brand image, has to realize better margins, not sell each new product. For instance, I bought a digital camera a few weeks ago. The list price was $700. The dealer said you get it for $350. A totally new product at a discount of 30%. So the Sony people in the meeting agreed we have to realize higher prices to avoid the heavy discounting. Then the global head of marketing said, but then we lose market share. If we do that, we lose market share. And that was the end of the discussion, because a taboo had been touched. And even I didn't have the courage to say, so what? Better we lose some market share and survive instead of going under with the highest possible market share. More recently, actually a few weeks ago only, I discovered a change. The chief of Sony in the United Kingdom in Great Britain said, we give up this market share philosophy. We will go for margins now. So there seems to be a change, but it's coming much too late, and I don't know whether it applies also to the worldwide organization of Sony. So two examples from very good companies, BMW and Sony, which show that the true orientation, the culture, is market share oriented rather than profit-oriented. This leads me to a very important distinction between good and bad market share. I'm not at all against market share, and we will see in our second presentation that I am actually a fan of big market share, but of good big market share. What does good mean? Market share earned by performance, by quality, by innovation, by value, which leads to good margins and high profits. Bad market share, on the other hand, is conquered by aggressive low prices without corresponding low costs, so that margins are ruined, low profits and losses occur. So, my first lesson: manage for profit, not for share, is perceived as a provocation by many managers. It calls for a fundamental attitude change. Profit should and must be the first goal of each firm. As Peter Drucker, the famous management thinker, said, profit is the cost of survival and price is the most important profit driver. A very useful tool is what we call the competition map. Not to look at the market in general terms, but to split it up in smaller segments. Here a case from recreational vehicles, we have customer segments and product segments. When you do that, you usually find out that the positions of competitors are very different in these segments. In one segment, you may be leading. There you should clearly define that you are defending this segment. In another segment, your competitor B may be leading, and maybe you should keep out of this segment, because if you attack there, he will attack and retaliate. In some segments, here where you have the exploding stars, price wars were waging. Be very cautious there, perhaps you avoid this segment in order to diffuse the aggression. So by going into a more differentiated, segregated view and analysis of the market, you can reduce the spirit of aggressiveness. Of course, you should tell that you are defending your segment. You should tell that you are not attacking your competitors in their home turf. So this tool has proven very successful in diffusing the aggression in a market. And sometimes simply by exchanging price sellers for value sellers gives a huge boost to a company's profit. Lesson 2, aggression and acquiescence are highly effective profit killers. Both attitudes are deeply rooted in corporate cultures. You may have to become softer, more peaceful on your competitors, and tougher on your customers. So that's almost the opposite what you read in modern marketing textbooks, where you should do everything for your customers. Yes, that is true when it comes to value, to giving good service, etc. But you should not do everything for your customer when it comes to price, because that is going to destroy your margin. When the crisis comes, when demand goes down, it's better to cut volume, to reduce supply, than to cut prices. Very clearly, we just had a discussion with Mauro from Copa Airlines. When he has only 50%, he said some of the planes were only full by 40 or 50%. You cannot fill them by cutting prices, and it's a problem to get prices up again after the crisis. So if you are under a condition of crisis, rather think of reducing volume. Let me give you one example, which was very, very successful. The producers of champagne in France, a luxury product. In 2008, they sold 340 million bottles worldwide of champagne. In 2009, the demand went down to 270 million bottles. That was the forecast and also the reality. Now, what would normal companies would have done? They would have started promotions, discounts in order to get the volume up. What did the champagne producers do? They left 1/3 of the harvest in the field, in the vineyards. And so they reduced supply, reduced volume, did not change prices. Prices remained stable. Of course, they sold much less. And profit-wise, they were better off than by cutting prices. And now, in the recovery, they do not have to increase the prices because they kept them stable. If they had cut prices by 20 or 30%, they would have extreme difficulties to get prices up again. Maybe even the luxury image would have been destroyed by promotions, discounts, etc. So lesson 3, in the sense of manage for profit, not for market share, price is an extremely effective profit driver. Price can generate huge profits or destroy margins. If possible, avoid price cuts. I don't say avoid price cuts in general. Sometimes it's not possible. You have to cut price. But if possible, avoid them. They may bring you market share, but they often kill profits.